Hey everybody, welcome back to the MSR Workshop. So today's video we are going to be talking about how to prepare your Monport K40 for warmer weather, or any CO2 laser for that matter, as well as we are going to be doing a project that is guaranteed to get you in the mood for spring, so stick around. So now that we've started to get into spring and warmer weather, it's time to start preparing our lasers for that increase in temperature. Now, during the winter months, I had my laser set up where I had a bucket with a heater and I had a circulator that kept warm water circulating through my tube. Now that was great when the weather was cold because that kept my glass tube from cracking. When it gets warm, I don't want that, and I want to actually keep my laser cool. Well, when I was sent this laser from Monport, I also requested them to send me their chiller. Now, it's not the chiller with the compressor in it that actually cools the water and then circulates it through. It's a chiller in the sense that it is an evaporative cooler. So it has a grating system that circulates water and then a fan blows on it to cool it off that way. Well, when I was sent this laser, I asked Monport if they could send one of those too. I haven't been able to use it because I've been in cold weather outside. Well, now that it's finally warm, it's time to do an unboxing and get that set up and show you what I'm going to do to get the laser ready for this warmer weather. So let's get this unboxing underway. So this has sat unopened in my garage since Monport gave it to me, just because the weather has been cold and I haven't needed it. Not a whole lot in here, just a power cord and this big chiller unit, which is an evaporative cooler. There is no pump to actually chill the water, it just blows cold air through a coil. So this is the heater unit that I had set up over the winter time, taking off the glass heater, and then I'm just going to drain those little tubes from the glass laser tube and pull that out. And I'm not going to save this water. It's time to go ahead and change your distilled water, just because you've been running it all winter, so it's a good idea just to go ahead and drain it all and change it. There is an inlet and an outlet on the back of this machine. That's all you really need to do to hook it up, other than filling it up with water. And I think I put about 3 gallons total in this thing, and there is a gauge on the back, so you do know how much you put in once this thing is completely full. And right now it is reading 19.7 Celsius. Ideal temperature for at least a big CO2 laser is going to be around 18 degrees Celsius. Don't ask me what that is in Fahrenheit right now, but I kind of know that's a good place to be. So 18, 19, even 20 is going to be great. Now, because this is not an actual chiller, meaning it doesn't have a compressor to actually cool the liquid, you're basing it off of the liquid that's in a tank, and this fit about 3 gallons to get this thing completely full. So obviously the more volume of water that you've got, the less chance for it is to heat up quickly. So when I was using the bucket, because it was a very small amount of water, it was able to heat up a lot more quickly because it's circulating that entire volume of water through at a faster pace. Because this is larger, you're not going to run the risk of heating up as quickly. This still has the potential to heat up, but it's not going to be as good. So this is an evaporative cooler, meaning there is some fins in there, just like you'd see, say, in an air conditioning unit outdoors, where you have cold water passing through a coil and it's blowing air over that coil to really help kind of cool it off. Now, on a really hot day, you still may have a little bit of trouble keeping it completely cool, but it's definitely going to be a good starter. But anything bigger than a K40, I do recommend getting an actual industrial chiller. They are a much more substantial investment, but if you're going to invest in a bigger laser, you actually want to keep that laser working for a long time. So yeah, just go that route. Smaller laser, this should be just fine. So next we're going to jump over and we're actually going to do something on LightBurn, and we're going to make something. So the next part of this project is we are going to make ourselves some garden herb tags, or you can be for your vegetables or whatever. So we're going to go through LightBurn and I'm going to show you how I make something from scratch so you can see how to do it on your own. So for starters, we're going to go ahead and grab the square up here, and we're going to start on one of these little boxes here just to make our life a lot simpler. It doesn't really matter how big you make it because we can make it smaller once we're done. But we're going to grab to a box, stretch it over to another box, so we're not in the middle of any of these, so it just makes our working with everything proportional. So next, we're going to go ahead and grab our pencil tool, and we're going to start on the outside of the box, but we're going to line it up with this line here. So click here, go all the way to the center here, and you'll see the shape change when you get there, so that means it's locked in there and you've reached the center. Click once and go outside here, and we want to go outside the box and click again, and then you'll grab it here. If you right click, it'll get rid of the other side of that arrow. So next what we're going to do excuse me, is we are going to go back to our arrow up at the top, and one thing we need to do with this is we need to change this to a path, and the reason we need to do that is we need to be able to edit the nodes in this path. So if you right click, you can see convert to path. And what that does is when I go up here to this little funny shape here with the little bumps on it, that is a node editor. So if I click on that, hit my node editor, I can edit the nodes in here. So if we zoom in on our shape that we just created, what we need to do is we need to get rid of this outside area here. So the reason that we overlapped a line is anytime you overlap a line, you can delete everything on either side of the line. So if our node editor is active and I hover over this line and on my keyboard I hit T, it will delete everything that has an overlapping line. So if I go over here, hit T, come back over here, click on that one. So now, zoom back out a little bit so you can see that. I have the beginnings of a little stake. I wanted something pointy. So next, we are going to highlight this whole thing, and we're going to go up to edit. And just to make sure that my path is closed, I'm going to hit close path. Now that's going to make sure that I have a continuous line to make sure there's not any gaps in it. So now that I've clicked on that, I'm going to group this all together. So we're going to go to the picture of a group, hit group. Now it's all one continuous line. So when I click on it, all of those little pieces are moving. Now if you need to ungroup it for some reason, you can go back to the single person, which is the ungroup button. And if you hover over it, it'll tell you what it is. But next, I want to create an outline around this. So I'm going to go to this little circle here and click on it. And depending on how thick you want it, you can change if you want it an inward, you want an outward, you want both, you want round bevel corners, whatever. But for my purposes today, I wanted it about 2.3. Now you can make it bigger if you want, but just hit OK when you think you're done. Now I'm not sure why it made this little funny bump there. That's okay, because that part's going to be in the ground, so it really doesn't matter. So next, I want to actually delete this inner line. So just click on that inner line and delete it. And next, we are going to create our word that we're going to put in here. So just click somewhere outside and we're going to spell the word basil. Because it is that time of year and I have just been learning how to cook pizza on an outdoor pizza oven, And there is nothing better than a Neapolitan pizza with fresh basil on it. So next we are going to drag our word in here, but before we do that, we need to ungroup this because we need to be able to select this inner line. If I click the inner line right now, it's going to select that whole picture. So we're going to click that, we're going to go back to the ungroup. Now if I click that inner line, it's just activating that inner line. So come over here to our word basil, and as you notice I clicked on just one part of that. That means this is still all grouped together. We're going to ungroup it here in a minute, but don't do it just yet. We're going to drag our word inside here, and if you zoom in, you want to make sure that little parts of your word are overlapping this top line here. If it's not, you can ever so slightly enlarge it just to make sure that parts of your letter are overlapping. So just barely. Okay, now we're going to highlight from the right to the left that inner line, and now it's highlighted our word and our inner line. Now all of these little funky shapes here are ones that you'll use to weld words together to a line. So I believe it's the third one down, and you'll have to kind of play with it just a little bit. Sometimes they don't like to work. And I've never completely understood why sometimes it works sometimes and then it doesn't. So sometimes it doesn't like where your letters are positioned. Let's try this again. There we go. I don't know. Sometimes you have to move your lines around to eventually get it to work. But there we go. So we hit this third one down. It finally welded our shape together. So now everywhere there's a black line, it's going to be a cutout of these letters. So the next part we're going to need to do to our little garden stake is we need to add one more line here, because if we cut this whole inside out, it's going to be kind of floppy, and then we're also not going to be able to see our L very good. So we're going to one more time create an overlapping line. So I'm going to click there and overlap the line there, and then right click again. And I may have made it a little too short. Let's edit that line. Let's bring it a little bit longer. There we go. So now we're going to go back to our node editor. And if we click on that, it's going to highlight everything. So we need to go back and we need to ungroup it because we need to just be able to do this line here. So ungroup it just by clicking on it, hit the single person button, hover over a line here. Oh, let's go back to our note editor. There we go. And click there, zoom in there. So now if we zoom out just a little bit, we have our L that's captured in the space. This part down here is all going to be solid, and we just have our outside line. Now, if you need to make this edge a little bit smaller, you can. You just highlight the whole thing and you'll ungroup it. Now right now it's not grouped together, so I can change the overall dimensions of it if I need to. But since this is going in a garden, you might want to make this a little bit thicker so it's a little bit sturdier. Now if you want to change the whole size without changing the proportions, highlight the whole thing and then group it. And now if I click on one thing and grab from a corner, I can enlarge and make it smaller or bigger for my suited needs. Now we're going to take this one step farther, and what we're going to do is we are going to actually do the cutout first, and then all the little cutout areas, we are going to fill them with a different color. How am I going to do that? Well, we're going to cut this out of acrylic, and then we're going to use these little spaces, cut out another color of acrylic, and fill them back in. So stay tuned with me. I'll show you how to do that, but we're going to move over to the laser and we're going to get the laser set up for this. So my particular acrylic is about 3 mils thick. So we're going to set up our line settings. So on the K40, I've found that 9 millimeters a second at 40% power, and I've got this constant power mode selected. I'm not sure if you have to do that, but I'm doing it anyways. Also make sure your kerf offset is set to 0, because that's what we're going to use to actually enlarge little parts of this for our pieces that we're going to fill back in here. So make sure that's set to 0. We'll just hit OK. So 9 millimeters a second, 40% power, and kerf offset to 0. Hit OK. Now we're going to go over to our laser and we're going to get the piece of acrylic set up. So let's take a look at this. Remember, there's paper backing on the outside. So go ahead and leave that on for the moment. But we are going to fill those gaps in with another color. Now you can leave it just like this, which I think would look still fantastic. But just for fun, we're going to try and fill those gaps in. So next, to make the infill for this, we are going to recut all of these little pieces that this cut out. Now we don't need this outside because we don't need to make another one. Now if you want to make another one, you can. Of course, you'd be using all that amount of acrylic. So in our case, we need to get rid of this outline. If you click on the outline and it's not making this line go and it's getting everything, then once again you just need to go and do the ungroup button. So for our sense it is doing that, so we are going to hit delete, and now all it's going to do is cut this out here. But one thing we need to do is if we cut it out identical, the kerf that our laser uses, now that's the width of the laser beam, is going to be exactly to what it was before, and so that means these little pieces are going to fall right out. So we actually need to enlarge this just a little bit. So highlighting all of this at once, making sure this is all grouped together. It's not, so let's go ahead and group all this back together. Group back together, and now it's going to do everything at once. We're going to come up here to our cuts and layers and double click on that, and now we can go and see our kerf offset. We're going to want to go outward. If we go inward, it's going to make our actual piece smaller. So we're going to need to go outward, and if you want to test this before, you can. So I would just say cut a little tiny circle or a square and test to see what you're going to get the tightest fitting piece. In my case, I tapped these in with a small mallet and I was getting close to 3, but it was a little bit tight, so let's bring it back down. Oh, let's see. I want to make these too loose. Let's go to 2.75 this time. I went to 3 and it was quite a tight fit. Let's try 2.75. Same power settings, everything, just kerf offset is changed, and we're going to hit OK. Now we're going to go ahead and get a different color of acrylic, and we're going to cut that out. So let's go do that now. All right, so it's very important that you save all of your pieces because these are what we're going to fill our gaps back in. And it looks like I did lose some of them, so I'm going to need to do a little bit of hunting to find some. All of these little guys are what we're going to fill those gaps back in with. So let's get to putting this together. So one side, you'll notice, I don't know if you can see it on camera. It's kind of hard to tell. Might be tapered just ever so slightly. You can see that one, it's just angled just a little bit. That side is going to fit a little bit different than the others. So test fit it one side versus the other. And that fits right in there nicely. Could be a tad tighter. Let's see here. Sometimes if it's tapered, you may have to fit it from the bottom. And I had made a couple of these on this particular square here. For some weird reason, it didn't do the offset like all of the others did. So I'm not sure what was going on there. But we'll stick with the one we've got, because when we get these others in, it may push them around just a little bit, and they may fit snugly. And because we made these with the adjustable kerf on them, you don't have to use any glue. They're all just a press fit. And we got that just a hair tight. We may have cracked it just a little bit, but it should still stay together. And this is just going to go outside, so not too concerned about that. But yeah, that's what it looks like. All right, guys, that's the end for this project and unboxing. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to get your hands on a Monport laser or one of those chillers that I unboxed, you can follow the link below in my description and also use my Adam6 code, and that will get you 6% off your first laser or anything that they carry. And if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, be sure and leave them in the link below. And don't forget to hit that bell icon because that will alert you whenever I drop a new video. But until next time, guys, thanks again.